All right, good morning, ladies and gents. Welcome to our very first lab of this school year. So today we are going to be doing chocolate fruit scones. Now, this is our first lab of our quick breads unit, and we're going to start with our first mixing method, which is the biscuit method. Now, the biscuit method involves taking dry ingredients, cutting in cold solid fat into the dry ingredients, and then kneading in your wet ingredients to make a very light and hopefully flaky end product. So during demos for this class, what you will do is, if we are doing a recorded demo like you're seeing here, you will have a Mise En Place sheet that you will use to keep yourself organized when you're in the kitchen. Now, your Mise En Place sheet is obviously blank. This one is filled in already. And on the top here, you're going to fill in the ingredients as I go over them, and then you will fill in the steps. Okay, at the very beginning of each lab, I will go through the ingredients for you to write down. If you miss anything, obviously you can just pause it. All of our ingredients for most of our labs are going to be measured out using weight. That means you are going to use a kitchen scale. I'm going to show you how to use this a little later in the lab here. Okay, but first, let's get started. Let's go over the ingredients. So go ahead and write these down on your Mise En Place sheet. So first, we have 3.5 ounces of unsalted butter. We will always, in this class, use unsalted butter. Never, ever, ever use salted butter for cooking. 1 ounce of white sugar, 2 ounces of buttermilk, and 4 ounces of sour cream. Now, I have those mixed together already in a container here, just because those will go together. 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. Now, we will talk about how kosher salt is different than table salt. We will always use kosher salt in this class. We'll explain that at another lab. 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 8 ounces of all-purpose flour, half of an ounce of baking powder. Even though we do have acidic ingredients in this recipe, we're going to be using baking powder for this. 2.5 ounces of chocolate, whether it's just chocolate chips or chopped chocolate, and 4 ounces of any dried fruit. Can be dried cherries here. I have just simple raisins. You can leave these out if you want, but if you want to have this as a chocolate fruit scone, then put those in. Now, at the start of any lab, you have to wash your hands. That is the most important part as far as lab prep. So let me go ahead and do that right now. Okay, so our first step, step number 1, and this is where on your Mise En Place sheet you are going to write down these steps. Now, first step is to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Now, on the ovens here at Heights, there is 2 buttons that will turn on the oven. One is bake and one is convection bake. You can use either or. I would recommend, just for this first lab, just to hit bake, not the convection one. It doesn't really matter too much, but just to keep everything simple, just go with bake for now. Okay. For step 2, you are going to mix together the dry ingredients in one bowl, the wet ingredients into another bowl. Now, let me show you real quick how to use a kitchen scale. Okay, so if I zoom in here. Okay, so here we have our kitchen scale. I'm just going to hit on. Now, your display is going to come up first as 0 ounces. Now, in some cases we will use ounces, some cases we will use grams. That's where these buttons right here will help you switch over. But for right now, we're using ounces. What you're going to do is you're going to put your bowl or container on the scale. Now, the scale is going to set for the weight of the bowl, so all I have to do is just hit the 0 button again, and it zeroes everything out. So now, what I'm going to do is, in the bowl, when I'm measuring, is I'm going to just simply add in and weigh out the ingredients until my scale is set. Obviously here I set and prepared all my ingredients. This is our Mise En Place. But here we have our 8 ounces. Then to measure the next ingredient, I'm going to hit 0 again, and this is where then I will add my sugar. Now if you're using the scale, now it's okay if it's like 0.1 ounces off, that's fine. I'll hit 0 again, then I'll add in all of my other ingredients. Okay, so that's how you use a scale. Same thing with liquid ingredients, you would put everything into the container, 0 out the scale, and you're good to go. All right, so in one container, I've got all my dry ingredients, which is the flour, the sugar, and the baking powder and salt. And then in the other container, I'm going to have my buttermilk, my sour cream, and my vanilla. Okay, so that will be step 2. Now, key part of the biscuit method of mixing is our next step, which is to cut in the fat into the flour. Now, what we're going to do is I have my solid cold fat in here. I'm going to place that right on top. Now, in order to cut this in, we have to basically break up this fat into very, very small pieces, almost the size of a pea. Now, there's a couple ways I can do that. I can use a pastry blender and just basically smash it until it's nice and small. I can use 2 knives and just simply kind of slice the butter through. My preferred method, however, is to just simply break it up using your hands. Now, the disadvantage of this method is that you do warm up the butter a little bit with your hands, which is not super ideal, but if you're quick and you only use your fingertips, it should be okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my butter, I'm just going to squeeze it and break it up using just my fingertips, and I'm just going to go through and just not squeeze it like put it in the palms of my hands and then squeeze. I'm going to break it up using just my fingertips. Okay. Now, again, the disadvantage here is that you warm up the butter, so with the pastry blender, all you would have to do is just take it, just kind of find the chunks of butter, smash it. Occasionally, just run your fingers over the blades just to get off any butter that is stuck on there. And I'm going to just work this until it is very, very fine. Okay, so when we come back, I will show you what that looks like. Okay, so my butter is, as you see, in very, very fine, small pieces. Okay, you probably want even a little bit finer than this. Okay, but what's going to happen is as this bakes, all these little fine, small pieces of butter will melt into its own little layers, and as the scone goes into the oven, the water from the butter will actually steam and help rise the scone itself and making something that's very flaky and good texture. All right, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to go to my next step. Step 4 is I'm going to fold in my wet ingredients. So in the center of this, I'm going to add in all of my wet ingredients. And then I'm going to stir this together. Now, at this point, this is where you can screw things up. We just added water to flour. So therefore, we are making gluten. We need enough gluten to hold this scone together, but if we mix too much, we make too much gluten and we make something that is going to be tough or have a really bad texture here. So what I'm going to do is with my spatula, I'm not going to so much stir this together so much as I'm just going to fold the dry ingredients into the wet ingredients. Okay, and what's going to happen is that the dough is going to come together. Now, as it kind of clumps up, I actually find it a little easier just to use my hands here. So just going to kind of fold and pat it together. Fold, fold. I'll add the chocolate at this point, as well as the fruit. So now, with each time you turn and fold the dough should become a little bit stronger and like to form together. Okay. For the rest of this, I'm actually going to do this right on the counter, just so that you can see it a little more easily. Okay, and that's my oven ready to go. Okay, so to fold this, I'm just going to kind of bring this together. I'm then going to kind of fold it on itself and then just press and knead. Now, at first, you see, obviously, the dough is very loose, it's shaggy, it doesn't want to stick together. That's okay. As you knead each time, you bring it all together and then press, a little more gluten is going to be formed and it's going to come together. So, bring together, knead. Bring together, knead. Now, this is, each time you do this, you see, the dough is kind of coming together and it's less shaggy now. Okay. At this point, this is where your feel has got to come in. I can't really explain it to you too much, but you got to feel it out. If your dough is sticking to the counter like this is here, then what you want to have is have a little bit of extra flour just on the side so that you can just gently dust the counter. And then I have a bench scraper that I can use to kind of pry the dough off of the counter. So if it's sticking a little too much to the counter, then you dust it with a little flour, use a bench scraper, and continue folding. Okay, so here you can see dough is just coming together, got a little split there, so I'm just gonna probably need about one more time. Actually once more. Okay, now at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my next step, which is I'm going to, using my hands, not a rolling pin, because a rolling pin will work this a little too much, is I'm going to pat this out into a rectangle that's about, I'd say, ½ an inch thick. There we go. So you can see now it's a super easy to work with dough, whereas before it was just kind of a shaggy mess. All right, now I'm going to cut this into scones. Now you can use any shapes that you want. You can just cut it just simply into bars. I'm going to go with triangles because it just looks a little bit better here. So I'm going to make one cut diagonally and then make another cut diagonally. And there you'll see, it's just sticking to the counter a little bit, you have two scones. So I'm going to put that onto a parchment lined baking sheet. Okay, put that here. Now hindsight, I probably should have made this a little thinner, but that's okay. So I'll cut one more. Now, you don't have to cut this into 4 scones. You can cut it into more or less, depending on how many people in your group. But here's one thing I'm going to recommend. Okay, we've talked about how if you overmix quick breads, how they kind of have a bad texture or they become a little tough. What I want you to do with 1 scone in your batch, I actually want you to purposely overwork it. So I'm just going to knead this together for another minute or 2, which is way too much for a quick bread. Okay, now I've created a scone that is going to be probably a lot tougher. You can already see some of the chocolate is melting from just me working it way too much. But what I want you to do is, I want you to try this, because what I want you to do is after these are done baking, compare the texture and flavor of this scone compared to the other ones that were made properly. Okay, so I'm going to put that onto my baking pan, And now from here, we go to our last step, which is I'm going to bake this from anywhere from 18 to 25 minutes. Now, obviously, you probably want to shoot for 18 minutes to start because you can always add time. You can't really take it away. What you're looking for is just that they're nice light golden brown. The edges are completely set. And for your timers, remember, super important, do not use your phone for a timer. Also, do not just use the clock in the room as a timer, because people that do that tend to forget about them. What you want to do is set the timer that is on the oven. Okay, all you will do is hit kitchen timer, hit 18, and hit enter. If you need help on that, of course, I'll be in the lab to help you out. All right, so I'm gonna bake these off, and then in about 18-20 minutes, I will show you what they look like. In the meantime, what you can do, or what your groups can do, is you can get cleaned up, you can get everything straightened out and put away. This is a perfect time to get your jobs and get your responsibilities done. All right, so I'm gonna take care of this. See you soon. All right, and here they are, nice and golden brown. So that is our scones. Now, at this point, what you would do is obviously you would pack these away, and then as far as the lab, if you get done early, then your group, after all your jobs are done, you will return back to your table. On the back part of your mise en place sheet will be a couple questions that you can get a head start on. If you time out, if you plan your time properly, then you should be able to get this mise en place sheet done within the hour itself. All right, now as far as the scones themselves, you can see we have some really nice ones that you can see have nice layers, nice and flaky, whereas the one that we overworked, you can see not really much as far as layers. Now, because there's a lot of fat, a lot of buttermilk and stuff like that, this will still probably be good, but it's going to taste more and going to have more of a texture of a dinner roll versus a nice flaky and light scone. All right, now, just some quick reminders. Remember, you need to have your mise en place sheet completed in order to participate in labs. So make sure that you get this filled out completely before you come in tomorrow. Also, make sure you have closed-toed shoes and the proper attire so that you can go into the kitchen. At this point, at the end of the lab, you should have all of your jobs completed. Make sure you're talking with the other people that have the same job as you. Managers, you are going to make sure that you are overseeing the whole kitchen, make sure everyone's doing their job and getting everything done. Chef's coats and your chef's hats, if you are using, will go into our laundry room for our laundry people to take care of. And remember, always keep an eye on the clock. You have to get these done by the end of the hour. All right, if you have any other questions, please let me know, but that is it, and I will see you guys for next lab.